Welcome. Welcome, everybody. My name is Ben Bowler from Unity Earth, and we are here on the morning of the International Day of Peace. Happy International Day of Peace to one and all. It's day 5 of Peace Week, and it's day 96 of the 99 Days of Peace through Unity. Oh my goodness, we're getting so close towards the end of this incredible journey, which has carried us so far. I'm very, very excited to be here with an incredible panel today to be talking about today's core need of physical and emotional safety. I want to welcome Patricia Anne Davis, Susan Eirich, Laura Caldéron de la Barca, and Sarah Grace. Welcome all of you to Peace Week.
Thank you so much.
We're going to begin today by hearing a little bit directly from each of you around today's theme of the core need of physical and emotional safety. What an incredible vision it is to of the 7 core needs to be working towards guaranteeing access for all humans and animals towards physical and emotional safety, building upon the living soil and the healthy water and the fresh, clean air, and of course the vitalizing food that we've had over the first 4 days. And now this need for physical and emotional safety is such an important one for all of life. Patricia Anne Davis, you're an accomplished academic in your own right, as well as a deep wisdom carrier from the Diné people. And we're very, very honored to have you. And I'm going to give you some time here to just speak your opening framing, Patricia, of our sharing today.
My spiritual family, all of my relations. Ya'ate abene, shik'e shidene, also. Greetings and a warm hug to each of you from my fireplace to the hearth of your home. So thank you. Thank you for this invitation to speak about the physical and emotional safety conditions within the eco-governance, unique life enriching potential to manifest our collective survival. That's the context in which I'm speaking from, the Indigenous lens. It is inclusive and cross-cultural, intergenerational, and also can be translated into any language. So the context and the framing is actually a reframing out of an inverse thinking system into an affirmative thinking system, which is from the actual authenticity of the ceremonial language, the words and the sacred words and language, Diné Bazad, of whom we call the holy people, our collective primordial ancestors. And so I'm working with a friend in Albuquerque with Child of All Nations, and you can find me on Facebook with Indigenous Wisdom Institute. It's an open classroom. And also a website is nativeamericanconcepts.wordpress.com, as well as please Google my name, Patricia Anne Davis, and my tribe, Choctaw Navajo, for all of my international work. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Patricia. And for that opening introduction to your incredible work. I have the good fortune of knowing a little bit about the extraordinary work that you do and the various groups and organizations and initiatives you're working with, and just one of the great leaders for our time. So we're very, very honored to have you with us. And you're also an ambassador for the 99 Days of Peace through Unity. We're very, very joyed to have you with us today. I'm going to bring Susan Eirich up with us. Susan, also an extraordinary history of achievement. We'll post the incredible accomplishments of Susan in the chat here. But Susan, welcome. And just this, what do you think is, kind of most present for you as we begin this conversation today around physical and emotional safety, and how we can move towards guaranteeing access towards physical and emotional safety for all humans and for all of life?
Well, there are two things. So I founded and run a wildlife sanctuary located near Yellowstone National Park, with the goal of helping us connect really deeply with nature. And I see that as fundamental to our mental and physical health and safety, because from that deep connection, we have an understanding that has us living differently. I wrote something once that speaks for what you asked, what's most top of mind. And as a child crawls towards a puppy, inexorably drawn, and the puppy responds. We go to the forest for solace, sensing the peace that resonates from a harmonious community of life forms. We receive it. Life recognizes life. Life exalts in life. Connection with life, any life form, creates a glow, and in that connection, energy flows and we are healed. This is our inheritance, what we instinctively know, what helps us thrive. This is what we have been torn from as we live in an increasingly soulless, frantic, man-made world, and this is what we must return to. So that's the essence of my work.
Beautiful, beautiful, Susan. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. That return, we're going to be talking more about that return as we go through today. What are the best local, regional, and even global solutions, that can help facilitate such a return towards that state. Okay, wonderful. Our next speaker and guest is Laura Caldéron de la Barca. Laura, welcome, and welcome to Peace Week, and welcome to today's discussion and your opening reflection on today's subject, please, Laura.
Thank you so much, Ben. So for me, the place where I look from is the disciplines of psychotherapy, and particularly collective trauma and collective healing. And I'm very clear that one of the things that really, it makes a difference to work on emotional safety, because often our physical safety gets compromised mostly when emotions fly off the handle. So focusing on emotional safety can go a long way to bring about the conditions for physical safety. And given the conditions that our world is in right now, we've been experiencing what I believe are the first really global collective traumas through the pandemic, through climate change and the increase in these extreme climate events that we've been seeing, and also the polarization in our political and social environments. And I think that has left really a trauma imprint in all of us. And so being able to look at how can we help ourselves heal from trauma, and particularly given that trauma happens when we find ourselves in positions where our lives are at risk. It seems to me that the disconnection from the sacredness of life that both Patricia and Susan have spoken to is really at the foundation of why we're not being able to relate to each other. And unless we deal with the impacts that have left like a lens that we see through then and see threat everywhere. When we look at what's happening right now with Vladimir Putin, for example, it's that lens where fear and rage and that, these emotions that are not seen and not dealt with end up having profound impacts on the safety on the planet. So I'd love to speak to that and what we can do around that. And I think, connecting to spirit, connecting to nature are two essential aspects of what we need for healing. And thanks so much for the invitation to be here with you all.
Thank you, Lara. Thank you. Beautiful. The focus on the emotional safety as being almost the precursor towards setting conditions for the physical safety sounds like a very important conversation. Wonderful. Sarah Grace is here with us as well. Sarah from California, wonderful to have you here in Peace Week. And yeah, looking forward to hearing your opening reflections today.
Thank you so much, Ben. I'm so honored to be here with all of you. And from my perspective, really, it's coming from the somatic healing in the communion with how we are born in the first 3 years of life, ultimately from preconception, so pre our incarnation into form, and then into the first 3 years of life. So from a somatic therapy perspective, the brain is ultimately locked in after 3 years. 90% of our brain is formed in the first 3 years of life. Most of that happens gestationally. So how are we as a humanity supporting sentient life in the first 3 years of life, knowing that that infant, that toddler will become the next leaders of our time? How are we holding our mothers, our fathers? How are we supporting the preconception time, knowing that sentient life comes in and recognizing that each one of us is a sentient being? From that, we know that peace, ultimately, safety, begins within. When the soma, I call it our soul into soma, when our soma, our body, knows that this sentient being is safe inside, we actually form a peaceful humanity because we are meeting peace in body, safety in body with others. Co-regulation is key. So the first 3 years of life, we are co-regulating to our outer surround, to our mother, to our father, to our guardians, our parents, and then our outer community. So in the prenatal perspective, we're talking about layers of support. So how are we supporting sentient life coming in? How is the mother supported? Who's supporting the baby? How is the father supported? Is the father being supported by the community? Doesn't matter if it's mother, father, parents, however that family looks like. How are we supporting the first 3 years of life in the sense that safety begins first with me? And then when we do have prenatal trauma, as most of us do, most of us were born in hospitals, and a re-education needs to take place in hospital systems around sacred birth. There's ways, there's tools to heal the trauma. First, it has to happen within. How do I find innately in myself the way that this sentient life knew I needed to be born in a co-regulatory field? So I always say that when we hold birth as sacred, that when it's an awakened birth, it's an awakened earth. So they're together. Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful, Sarah. Thank you. Well, let's bring our 4 panelists up together. What a wonderful opening. Great to hear just a sort of a window into the wisdom that we have here today. And we're specifically asking the question, and you may want to address, if you do want to address some of the challenges, by all means, please do presence what you see as some of the biggest challenges we're facing as well in this regard, because I think it's important to have a look at our current state and what's working, what's not working. But really, the question we've asked is, what do you think are the optimal local to global strategies, local to community to global strategies for ensuring the guaranteed access of all humans and animals to physical and emotional safety, and what would be the whole system healing benefits of such a strategy? So Patricia Anne Davis, we're going to start with you. You were muted, unfortunately. We'll get that fixed. You can do it on your side. There you go.
Thank you, everyone. Great to see all of you And thank you for your interest and thank you for your participation. And I will be using this Denepazad context, which is the natural order context of the very laws that govern us all equally. And I began with the vibration of how our language is inclusive. There's no way, and I love to tell people that there's no way to exclude anyone in this. It's an esoteric language, it's a spiritual language. And so I'm describing and I'm defining, and sometimes I have charts to illustrate what I'm speaking about. Thank you to the holy beings who guide and protect us, and gratitude always to my late father, my Dene father, Anselm Davis, Sr. of Lukachukai, Arizona. He gave me a task at a very young age, and when he initiated me into his healing ceremonial processes and practices, he said, and I quote, "Undo the thinking that caused our people so much violence and suffering." And now this is, we're talking about currently we're in a global crisis, and this applies to everyone. This is my lifetime healing work, and I'm a diagnostician and a practitioner. I was born with the gift of what we call Tianle, which is a seer and a visionary. And so what I did was design. In my master's degree in whole systems design, I took my work out of Western science and put it in indigenous science context, and I'm stewarding a body of knowledge that is not, it's not published in the literature. So it's coming from oral tradition. And so I'm grateful for the opportunity to be visible in order to educate, because people do not have access to this indigenous lens. Thus, in the oral tradition of the holy people I refer to, the Yendene, are our collective primordial ancestors. What does that mean? That we're all the holy people. We're born into holiness and wholeness. And so I introduce myself from my matrilineal and patrilineal ancestry. This is customary in our tradition. We have a name whom we're called, and then we say to our audience that who we are, our identity, our lineage. Who are you? This is who I am. I call it my boarding school colonial name, Patricia Anne Davis, because Davis was given to my father in a boarding school at Haskell Indian School in Lawrence, Kansas, where he met my mother and brought her to his birthplace. That's what I'm called. However, Adonai, a Mississippi band of Choctaw, Kachi Bashilchin Chata Dene Edashache, Kia Ani Edashanella, and Ado the Yen the Ne Biajan Shle Doni He Gle. That is affirmative language, and collectively saying that each of us, we're all a precious child of Creator, and we're in creation simultaneously. That's the hardest concept to get across to Eurocentric and European Americans, is that concept of Hojot, that we're existing within and simultaneously with Creator, within creation. And we're all governed by the natural order laws, which I said was the context and container. And we're born as humane beings. Nahukat Dene is earth surface people, and Bella Ashlai is 5 fingers people, to convey that we're humane beings hear that word, humane beings. Therefore, we're born and given our original task, each and every one of us, and we're born as Indigenous peacemakers. We're born as peace ambassadors, and we're denying this. And my work is to bring that reframe, which is to restore our thinking out of the inverse thinking, which I call the people in the West love and are addicted and believe that they're born in a deficient self-image, that we're born something wrong with us, that we're born shadow side, evil side, and so on. And it's just not true. There's no terminology or concept. It doesn't exist at all, because we are of the earth, water, fire, and air, in the earth, water, and fire, and air. And so this a global initiative here is the practical unifying and accelerated way to world peace. That it does begin within us. All change is to make that correction within our thinking, because we're projecting outward what we're telling our body, wrong information. And so we can't reform anything that's already destructive and harmful. We can only reframe to our original instructions, our original task. And within this context, then these natural order laws are I'm going to describe to you the what I'm calling in English natural order, because English is abstract and the language I'm speaking from is descriptive. Everything is descriptive and alive and awake, and we're included within this all-encompassing concept of holiness, wholeness. There is no duality in it. Only the English language is designed in dualism, and therefore I will just go through the natural order, and then I will answer the questions that we have been asked to bring to your attention from our particular work, life work, and our genius, inherent gifts, knowledge, and wisdom. I'm going to describe to you natural order. We're saying this is east, south, west, and north. Ehozendo and sahakes. Holy thinking nahat apatzil is strong planning, and hojojik ina is the life, the see the beauty and feel the love, and the interrelatedness and the interconnection in which of how we are alive. We might say life itself is existing within us and around us, and certainly our voice is the power of truth, and the power as the only truth, as a leveler and a truth teller. That's our protection. And so when I say Ya'at Shik I'm saying Ya'at is all that is good, beautiful, and true, and that's all I speak. That's our greeting. And so the vibration of it and the interconnection with the natural order in the now, not someday, next week, or next century. It's existing currently, so that when I say earth, water, fire, east, south, west, and north, and holy thinking, strong planning, the decision making for restoring the resources for the next generation. It's going it's going clockwise, not perpetuating from the bottom to the top, not perpetuating from all the resources going from the poor to the rich. The reframe, which I call the reverent revolution, is in our own thinking from that orientation to clockwise in nature, because we're existing on Mother Earth with the longitude and latitude. So from the east, there's child, and the south is youth, and the west is adult parent, north is grandparent and elder, the last quadrant there, returning home, and the child coming in. So that transfer of knowledge that's intergenerational from elder to youth. So that's how, answering the first question about the optimal local to global, I'm describing that to you, that we're not honoring that, where there is a transfer of treasure knowledge from elder to youth, the intergenerational and the cross-cultural, so that we're all sharing in this process. So let's put it in contemporary terms that we could say there's leadership and administration, and then there's the training, and then there's a client services, and then there's the evaluation and IT, and so on. So it's not, quote, primitive. It is a template, and this template is universal principles. So what are we here to do? The fundamental basis of equality is where we're existing as our body is earth, 72% water, fire is temperature, we're in breath, out breath. Life is not all give, it's not all take. That's exactly where we start in terms of healing. The key to all healing in life is that life is not all give and it's not all take. There must be balance and harmony just in our very in breath and out breath, and then our navigation between Mother Earth and Father Sky. So that this is what I'm calling social justice, is that we make the decision for the greatest good for the greatest number of people. You all know that. That's our original instructions and tasks. And so let us choose win-win, constructive and life-affirming decisions for those outcomes. That is what we're calling hojo. And then the question about whole systems healing and the benefits, and notice that I'm talking about holographic, holistic. That is the interrelatedness and interconnection of earth, water, fire, and air. And then food is corn, which is our tree of life. This is the place where we're not in contention, perpetually recruiting people into perpetual adversary and conflict and warfare. Our language doesn't even have that concept. There's no concept for war and so on. We can deal with that in the questions. And so the third question about how do we move forward? Well, I designed, and I'll list it for you. I designed in English, and it follows our ceremonial, our authentic ceremonial healing process. It's called Indigenous Ceremonial Change Process. So collectively, let us together intend and visualize and speak and manifest these unifying principles and reframe our thinking with this sequencing. The sequencing, like we don't change, we don't rearrange the clock, and nothing is in a triangle either. And European people always do three, and they always call it three-prong approach. And on the job, even psychology, a symbol is a pitchfork. So these symbols, let's change them to. There's four in our language. Where we're not talking in an abstract way. So naming, and definitely what is out of balance. Identify the root cause that maintains and perpetuates and keep that out of balance condition. We do that with the mechanic, we do that with the doctor, and we're not even doing that for ourselves. Did you ever notice that? It's intuitive, and it's practical and realistic. The part that doesn't exist in Western culture anywhere is the emptying. Ilko is right here is the tip. This is not talk therapy. Ceremonial practice is where the emptying of the maladaptive emotions, hate, envy, greed, jealousy, anger, shame, guilt, fear, lust, and so on, they do not exist in our body or in the natural world. The criminal mind calls them in to tell our body wrong information. And so there is a place of safe and supportive where there's no judgment, punishment, or condemnation in emptying. And then we feel those authentic feelings of love and peace and joy and good health. That is the reframe. So we're out of the inverse of win-lose, nobody wins, destructive and death-producing decision for those outcomes that we're witnessing and experiencing. And we're into the affirmative of Hojo. So we call that everything no good and doesn't work. We call it Hochon, and you can hear it. And the reframe is into Hojo, the win-win, constructive, and life-affirming decision for those outcomes, so that we can come to group consensus and then manifest the co-creative solutions for, quote, literally, Hojo de ceremony. And when I get home, I'm attending our family 4-day. Every 4 years, we renew our medicine bundle. It's called Zathlej. That's literally living the loving way as a way of life, as my Aunt Faye Noki said to us. Thank you, my spiritual family, all my relatives, and Aheha Shik'e Shidane Ananso.
Oh, thank you, Patricia Anne Davis. Thank you so much. I think that's such an important place to begin, is the reframe. And, we know that through history and the way that our societies, particularly in the European West, has evolved, is we're living with kind of some sort of split personalities or some sort of great split in our consciousness. So, coming back to worldview is a great place to begin when we're talking about establishing this core need being met for all of life, of physical and emotional safety. I think, starting with a worldview in where the child believes the universe is safe and good, and that goodness is the natural state. That's a beautiful place to begin. Thank you so much, Patricia Anne Davis, for sharing that. We're going to come back. We'll hopefully have a little bit of time to have some more discussion as we go around as well. But that's a beautiful beginning. Susan, so building upon what you've heard from Patricia, and in your own way, talking about what you see are the optimal local to global solutions, or anything else you want to share about this subject, Susan Eirich. Let's get you unmuted. Oh. The curse of Zoom. The unmute.
It is. So I think, first of all, I love this. Coming together, people deeply concerned and caring. It's just a beautiful thing to do. My own background, by the way, is also in psychology. I resonated with everything that all of you said. It's all one unit, different aspects. I've done something called Reconnection Ecology, where we help reconnect deeply, not just reconnect, but reconnect at the deepest level. And that, this will come to the solution part too, but that we support one another in that reconnection, that we trust it, and then therefore come to act from it and act out in the world based on that deep connection with ourselves and with nature. As Laura said, we have to have the connection with ourselves first. But because I run a wildlife sanctuary, that is the main lens that I'm using at the moment. And the question is, if all life is sacred, which I think all of us here believe, then how do we live? How do we live from that point of view? And we have to make a radical shift. And that radical shift is to expand, to connect with all of life, with all of its multitudes of wisdoms and intelligences and spirit, and have that as a resource. We need to connect deeply and fall in love with other life forms, because that connection opens channels through which flows information, not intellectual information, and strength and healing. and leads to practical solutions. So a deep connection with nature gives us a sense of coherence versus incoherence. It gives us a sense of integration within ourselves and belonging to something larger versus disintegration. And currently we're in an incoherent situation. We are, and disintegrated. So first comes nature even before birth, so to speak, because that's the frame in which, the context in which we're born. So that's where our roots lie. And that gives us a sense of belonging and a sense of community. So I think what I'd like to do, Ben, is play a little video, if we can pull that up.
Absolutely. Apricot healing. I'm going to.
This is one of the wolves we had who had a serious illness to her brain. She was supposed to die and she didn't. And whenever you want to play it, I'll just talk until you play it, Ben. And Western medicine couldn't do anything about it, and I couldn't bear it. And I just had to grab a camera when I did this, so here you are.
Mm-hmm.
Jill put her hands on Apricot's neck and back, feeling her way into her nervous system. After a little nervousness, she started to settle in. It was as if she sensed we were trying to help her and felt the healing quality of Jill's hands.
Watch the breathing.
She startled with any new movement or sound, attending to her environment for danger signals, but she quickly settled back down.
There you go.
Good job, sweetie. That's it. She started to attend more and more to what was happening inside her. To all our amazement, she entered into a deep trance. For 40 minutes, this shy, skittish wolf lay there taking in the healing energy. When Jill felt she had done enough, she pulled her energy back. Apricot woke up and looked a bit disoriented, as if she had been very far away.
Mm-hmm.
She looked around, slowly got up, and started to explore the yurt. As we sat there, she came back, laid down, and basically asked for more. Jill worked on her for another 20 minutes. When we were finished, it looked like she was thanking her, grateful. Instead of imposing on her system with drugs, Jill had helped her find her own energy to heal herself. The next day, though her neck was still arched, Apricot had a new look in her eye, bright, energetic. There was a bounce in her step. We asked Jill to come again. This time, Apricot pulled Jean all the way to the yurt. Because his knees hurt on the floor, we decided to try to put her on a massage table. Again, she settled down quickly in this new environment. A wolf settling in on a massage table. She went into a deep healing trance. And when we were finished, just lay there, breathing deeply, eyes closed for a long time as we watched. The third time, she came in and went directly to the massage table, stood up and put her paws on it. The treatments continue. Apricot is not yet fully healed, but she's much better.
Susan, let's get you unmuted again. I can read your wolf talk.
Thank you. So that was the first time that I've ever experienced that. I loved her. She was all distorted from, she had distemper to her brain and like someone who was epileptic, and I couldn't bear it. And Jill did craniosacral work on humans with paralyzed nervous systems. And so just out of the hell of it, I invited her. She'd never met Apricot. Apricot had never met Jill. And that is as it happened. When she was licking Jill, that's a woman she had never met before. So it's so profound in many ways, and I'm sure you'll all pick up on all the various elements of it, but just to point some of it out, a human helping a wolf heal, and the wolf immediately understanding it, like immediately, and responding and taking in the healing energy. She healed completely, and she lived till 14 and leapt off waterfalls, and it was beautiful. Another thing that's so important is how responsive life is to us and to healing and caring. My experience, this is a first wolf, then it happened with another wolf, and then it happened with another wolf, and then it happened with a mountain lion. And I began to say, wait a minute, this happens across the board with all species. I mean, really, we instinctively know that anyway. And my wolves are going to howl again. I'm sorry, I can't, as I said, I can't turn them off. They're in the background if you hear them. So how responsive they are, and how important that connection is. And the flow that happens between two living beings when you heal. So I hope that my dog doesn't join in, which will be very loud. So the connection with nature, I think, is really important to say, can happen anywhere. It can happen in an apartment with a plant. It can happen with any other living being. We're not restricted to the fact that I happen to have bears and wolves and bison and mountain lions, etc. That just makes it more dramatic and more obvious. And they serve as a portal into an understanding of life. This one portal into a larger understanding of life, that it can happen anywhere. What can we do about these things? How do we help with? What are some of the solutions in the larger picture? So one is voluntary simplicity, living really simply. One of the difficulties we have, in my opinion, is that everything's so massively complicated, and we've left being connected to roots. I think it would be wonderful if we could do something like have a coming of age ritual in our schools, where students do go out and do a vision quest somewhere around age 12 or so that we recognize the transition to responsibility, and also so that they recognize, if they do a vision quest without food and water, obviously some water, we begin to treasure and value these things that we just take for granted. I think that would be a wonderful thing to do in our schools, and to know where our food comes from, so we're connected. Without saving habitat, there's nothing. So we have to rein in our tendencies to, oh, there's some land, let's develop it, let's put something on it. No, let's just leave it alone, because other animals need something like that. We need a certain level of plain sanity. How do we support sanity? Like, if you do this, then these are the consequences. Why are we not tuning into that level of sanity, of seeing what we're doing? And the solutions are there. About 2,500 years ago, suddenly there was this huge renaissance, and the Buddha came, and Jesus came, and other great religious leaders, all at the same time, and the whole new idea of compassion for other living beings. And even though it was diluted over the generations with leaders who were into themselves, etc., there's still a thread of that through all the great religions. And what if we can have a new great renaissance? It happened once. And all of us are working towards that. Wouldn't it be incredible if we could have a new great renaissance against all the negative things that are happening? From a global to local, I do something called storytelling. Not really, they're sharing deep experiences with one another in small, intimate circles that we've had with nature, transformative experiences with nature. And they're online, anyone can join, and it's a safe space. I do it also at workshops, but the hunger and the need to share these things that we've tucked away because they're told they're stupid or they don't fit into a worldview or whatever, the hunger to share them, and the stories that come out of deep experiences with nature are just amazing. I would like to go, that's something you do locally because it's small, but can also be globally, and that you can have thousands and hundreds of thousands of them all around the world, of this helping each other, supporting each other, reconnecting. Another thing, and I talked at the beginning about radical, is for us to stay in place and connect to our place. This running around everywhere all the time in planes, we're not connected to anything, and we don't have a sense of loyalty or connection to our own place. It disintegrates and disorganizes us. Lots of new experiences, but where are the roots? So, and we can stay in place in in a city, still we can connect to community gardens or to the tree in the street, but to stay in place rather than run everywhere and have that's the only way the deep connections can ultimately develop. In these small groups or in larger groups, Joanna Macy's wonderful work of a council of all beings, so that in our local communities, we have a council of all beings where humans come and represent the tree or the rock or the water, along with the human concerns. And we communicate with one another of how do we help our community grow differently. I think that's the essence of really what I want to say. From my psychology background, also there's a wonderful book. There are many wonderful books, but in the Psychology of Consciousness, Robert Ornstein says, humans are a much more extraordinary animal than we yet know. I fully believe that. Our potential is incredible, and we see glimpses of it in the greatness that we have around us. That's what we work towards. That helps us have hope and energy and vision. Have I answered the questions enough, Ben?
Yes.
I can go on. But
Well, we want you to go on, definitely, Susan. We'll come back. This is such a rich and beautiful field of sharing and just that care and that goodness that's here, that's been expressed. Loved that video, and it really, it just said so much, and then everything you've shared there, Susan. Thank you so much. We'll definitely come back to you. Let's go on to Laura now to hear Laura's reflections, again building on what Susan, the beauty that's been shared, and Auntie Patricia and Laura, your own deep experience and wisdom in this. What would you like to share?
Thank you so much, Ben. Well, first of all, I would like to respond and resonate with much of what has been shared here by Susan and Patricia, and I really honor the wisdom that you each bring and the lineages they come from. To me, part of what I deeply feel is the importance of the connectedness to nature and to our own nature, our nature as sacred beings, and our connectedness to land. And also, the beautiful video that you showed us, Susan, and noticing how our nervous systems have this capacity to connect and respond so beautifully. And what I would like to address is precisely that which gets in the way, that we human beings carry, the aspect of trauma and the aspects of emotional regulation. And first, to share a little bit about, how I'm understanding this, and then getting to the questions that been asked us. For me, emotional regulation is the capacity to recognize that we have become emotionally agitated and to take action to help ourselves bring our reactivity down, so we can engage with the most skill possible in our interactions. And normally this requires to slow down the interactions, to turn towards ourselves, as the wolf beautifully did in the video, to soften and make space for what we are feeling, and either receive external support or find within us a more resourced part of ourselves that can meet our reactive parts with care instead of acting out towards the person that triggered us. And I'll share an instance from my own experience. Once I was sitting in the passenger seat of a car with my ex-husband in the driver's seat and waiting for the green light to continue on our way. Behind us, a pair of men were rolling some small wooden stall. They lost control of it and it hit our car from behind on my side. My ex-husband got out, went over to look, and one of the men started to hit him. As I saw this, I was sitting with my window fully open and the other man walking towards me. In a flash, I saw this man's glassy eyes. I noticed that he looked stoned. I saw his hair that looked tangled and dirty and his clothes tattered and stained. I realized the level of poverty and the painful living situations these men had. I felt for them. So I leaned out the window and spoke to him saying, "Are you okay? It looks like you're having a difficult day. I'm sorry for that." The man stopped in his tracks, looked down, grabbed his companion's arm, and dragged him away from the scene. In this instance, emotional regulation played a crucial role in the capacity to de-escalate the situation, to create safety for us all. And first within me to access my compassion, and then, within the man who felt touched by the care and decided to turn away from aggression. In the course of human interaction, accidents, as well as conflicts, friction, disagreements, differences of opinion are going to be part of the relational journey. And they all have the potential for compromising our emotional and physical safety. However, they also have an important role to play. They ask of us to expand our capacity to relate and to understand the world around us. So we need to learn how to deeply listen to each other, especially when we have divergent views or in heated confrontations. This skill is not, however, the only aspect to consider in terms of an effective capacity for emotional regulation. We also need to look at trauma. And when I mention trauma here, I am not speaking of post-traumatic stress disorder, one of trauma's most extreme versions, whose intensity and level of overwhelm profoundly affect and impairs people's capacity, to even function in life. What I'm talking about is the impact of overwhelming events in a more everyday kind of way, where we lose control of things, but also where our lives feel at risk, or when we have an impact from witnessing traumatic events without being able to do something about them. In these cases, the emotions and impulses that we experience during the traumatic situations and that are meant to help us, they stay dormant but alive in our bodies because they did not finish fulfilling the intention of protecting us. And as they have not been completed, the process to turn them into memories is also not completed. So in other words, we carry the past alive in our bodies, and when we find ourselves in similar situations, we may not be able to stay present in the current moment because the past will reemerge in the form of sensations and emotions and will filter the information that we perceive. This is part of what probably happened to the man who was punching my ex-husband in the example I gave, who was not able to wait and find out if it was possible to resolve the situation through dialogue. So emotional regulation helps us diminish the sense of threat in an environment. But if trauma is present, this will add a layer of reactivity and challenge to the situation, and our normal regulation strategies and capacities may not be enough for us to keep the emotional safety of all involved. So for me, and given, as I was saying, the situation with the world right now, we really need to make trauma healing, trauma-informed care, and different strategies that we might be able to access a central part of how we create safety. It would be wonderful if everybody could really have a significant amount of time in nature, if everybody could be part of community and ceremony, as Patricia was mentioning, because it really creates an environment for healing that is that provides a sacredness and a safe space, as she was saying, for bringing in these vulnerable situations that we go through. And so from the psychotherapeutic side, for me, there's three elements that I would like to bring that I would make a central part of any strategy. The first one is the embodiment dimension of this. Trauma is held in the body. So cognitive or just mental approaches have a place, but they have a reduced capacity to address trauma compared to somatic approaches. To me, these are the most effective, along with approaches that foster a relationship between us and within us, with ourselves, in an embodied way. The wisdom of our bodies is the needed guide in the integration of the energy and information of trauma back into conscious awareness. In the presence of our aligned heart, body, and mind, the coherence that Susan was speaking about, the filter of the past dissolves, leaving the past truly in the past and us available to relate in the present. So relational processing is the other aspect, because trying to heal trauma in one's own, just by oneself, is in itself a symptom of trauma. Finding the support of either a trauma-informed therapist or a solid trauma healing group container where one can be met with care and acceptance as we bring this aspect of ourselves back into awareness and within the safety of the group or the therapeutic relationship is essential for healing or trauma and for having the inner conditions to contribute to create an emotionally and physically safe social environment. Relational wounds heal in relation, not in isolation. And finally, collective healing. Let's face it, even if everybody decided that they wanted to do therapy, we do not have the resources to attend to everyone individually. We therefore need more spaces for collective healing. Furthermore, the power of collective healing goes beyond the capacity to attend to the healing needs of many individuals at once. It also addresses dimensions of our experience that involve collectives that cannot be reached as easily, or sometimes not at all, with individual settings. And it actually also accelerates the healing process because of the increased power of collective presence and collective care. Now, for my suggestions for local to global strategies, these suggestions that I have at the strategies I propose here are based on considering what we can do to bring resources to expand our capacities for emotional regulation and trauma healing at the different scales of engagement in our society. My suggestions follow 4 lines as is being shown now: supporting psychoeducation globally through media and through national and local initiatives and campaigns, socializing already existing resources, supporting collective healing initiatives and research on the effectiveness of the different healing modalities of the diverse populations in the world. And if we go to the next one, in terms of psychoeducation, I invite initiatives, the supportive initiatives that involve making psychoeducation about emotional regulation and trauma available to the larger public. Globally, with the accessibility of online media, this is one way we can support the transformation of our culture into a more trauma-informed and trauma-healing one. An example of such an initiative is the film The Wisdom of Trauma that has been translated into 27 languages and presents not only the ideas of Dr. Gabor Mate, but very accessible stories of healing that have shaped and inspired his understanding and can help expand. Nationally, providing basic trauma-informed and trauma healing training as part of the national curriculum in different spheres of education, from emotional regulation practices in the basic levels of public education to teaching basic trauma knowledge and engaging older kids in collective healing practices. What Patricia was suggesting to me sounds beautiful. The coming of age ceremonies that have been lost now in the Western world would be a good example. And as well as teaching and training those attending and working at technical, college, and university levels. Making learning about collective healing modalities mandatory for any health professional beyond the field of mental health could also provide people with resources in many more spaces than just the therapy room. At a local level, at the various social system levels, organizations, companies, institutions, providing basic trauma psychoeducation and a basic infrastructure for emotional regulation and care. This might sound like a lot, but when you consider the cost of not attending to the trauma carried by systems and the workforce, the investment makes good sense. Consider that the number one reason employees leave a company is the toxic work environment that they might find there, which often relates to trauma being acted out. When you consider that the cost of replacing an individual employee can range from 1/2 to 2 times the annual salary of the employee, you might be better off providing emotional care in your organization, which can help boost morale, improve communication and relational capacity, and ripple out into the families and communities the organization serves. Socializing the already existing resources to help offer a variety of ways to access emotional regulation and address trauma and healing collectively. This speaks to the creation of hubs that bring together information for collective healing and about different healing modalities that are already available. One great example of that is the Wellbeing Project that provides different resources, webinars, article research, addressing from individual to societal well-being issues. Another instance is the free Collective Trauma Online Summit, of which I have the honor of being a host, where during our annual event, we bring together speakers from many disciplines to offer resources, insights, and practices focused on healing collective trauma. And we bring together a community of people interested in the topic, learning together and supporting each other to create a collective healing movement. You're more than welcome to join us. And then collective healing initiatives. There is work already being done that brings trauma healing to larger groups of people at the same time. Latin America is a pioneer region in this sense, with Colombia and Brazil as two of the poles where some of the most promising initiatives are being developed and carried out. Two examples. One is the work of Dr. Adalberto de Paula Barreto with community therapy in Brazil, who has worked with over 3 million people and has trained over 30,000 community therapists, combining embodiment, cultural, and relational resources with a very simple but very effective methodology that works with all kinds of communities. And it's designed so that people who do not know how to read and write can become certified practitioners. Also, Duna Foundation in Colombia, they implement social innovation models for mental health, psychosocial attention, and peaceful coexistence that include yoga and other embodiment practices, as well as restorative justice initiatives. They have been supporting the work of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission for Peace in Colombia and have had their protocols evaluated by independent researchers with very good results. Finally, supporting research on the effectiveness of the different healing modalities for the diverse populations of the world seems very important to me, because trauma is a hugely complex phenomenon. We have all the collective and all the intergenerational trauma and all the different moments in the arc of healing that might have very, very different needs. And sometimes the best intervention for a certain type of trauma could be the worst one for a different type of trauma. So we really need to bring together the knowledge and figure out systematically what works best for whom in this extremely diverse world we live in. And finally, what are the whole system benefits of such a strategy? Particularly with the psychosocial initiative, psychoeducational initiative, we would be focusing on resources and a change we will be focusing our resources to change our culture in a way that could go a long way in generating the conditions for emotional and physical safety, leveraging technology to reach many more people than we might have been able to otherwise, and teaching not just the techniques for emotional regulation and trauma integration, but the attitude of normalizing the presence of trauma and the collective need for healing. Social change initiatives could become much more effective if practitioners in the organization and in the field heal their own trauma, learn from the process, and gain more knowledge and tools to address it at a basic level with the individuals and collectives they work with. And finally, by finding and teaching the most impactful collective healing modalities to mental health professionals and health professionals in general, the support for basic healing needs could be much better met, enabling a healthier society to collaborate much better at a larger scale, which we will be needing to face the existential threats that challenge humanity today. Thank you very much, and over to you, my dear Ben.
Bravo. Wonderful, Lara. Wonderful.
Thank you.
A really comprehensive presentation. Thank you so much. We'll share a link to those slides here as well, Lara, with your permission, so that people can go through them. There's a lot of information there. But really, really great to see solutions from the ground that are working, that are being evaluated, and that are offering a pathway forward. And some of we'll get the links again that you mentioned earlier. We'll get these into the chat as well, so people can follow up with them. Thank you, Lara. Wonderful. All right, Sarah. Well, there's a lot here, isn't there, being shared in this incredible space already, and we're really delighted to hear from you too, Sarah, building upon everything that's been said so far, and also your own unique perspective on what do you see are the local to global challenges for us in this critical space.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you to Laura, Susan, Patricia. So just deeply landed in my being, all that you've shared. Thank you. There's so much that has been shared, and I feel, with regards to somatic resource, That's number one. How are we, as personal and collective, how are we able to touch and feel and experience, first and foremost, what safety feels inside the body? What are the sensations of safety? How do we know that I, in this moment, am safe? And from the somatic experiencing perspective, from continuum movement, pre and perinatal birth work, first and foremost, as a sentient being, can I touch and tune into that which is beating my heart? Our beloved Patricia spoke so beautifully of how we are earth, fire, air, water, that we are an embodiment of Gaia herself, that the earth and our body is one, that we are from the earth, we are from the stars. How do we feel that as a resource in our body? In a way, I truly believe that unless we heal our personal traumas, as Laura was sharing, we can't fully touch humanity and change our actions. Most of us, when we're really tuning in, we're having experiences of unfinished, unsequenced trauma. So where the nervous system truncated, it cut off from finishing off an expression that it needed, just like our beloved wolf that was shown in Apricot. That beautiful being had to rest and settle in co-regulation with a safe other. For her, I believe it was a her, to release her, okay, to release and discharge trauma effect in the body. As that happened, as we were seen, validated, witnessed that this nervous system hosts an unfinished trauma, then we can release it. So co-regulation is key. Now, not all of us have access. I'm hoping more and more do these days to having a therapist, a somatic informed, trauma-informed therapist to be working our traumas with. There's also an opportunity for self-regulation. And when I speak about layers of support, this comes from Mary Jackson, an incredible midwife here that I work with, and I'm honored to know Ray Castellino, the founder of pre and perinatal womb surround process workshops that I facilitate. Emily Conrad, they're the founder of Continuum. Self-regulation. It's not that we are alone. We are a sentient being on Earth. So our primary mother is Earth. Our primary father is cosmic stars, cosmic sun, cosmic source. This is our primary expression. So when we were first arriving on Earth, there was a shimmer of light that lands. That shimmer descends down. And then developmentally speaking, we grow, I'll just move my screen a little bit, we grow from the ground of being up. So there's this toroidal field that happens through our developmental time in utero. Yes, we need the mother. Yes, we need the nourishment of our biological mother. But what is it that formed us? Those embryological forces, the mystery that sustains all of life, is here now, always. That's what we tend to when we tend through the lens of continuum, through the lens of the spiralic intelligence of the body informing how we truly wish to have been born. The body knows how to be born. The mother's body knows how to birth. When we take the power away from the feminine, that is when we control life. Life can't be controlled. Life is an expression of nature unfolding itself. When we take a back seat and we rest, we land in ourself, then we allow nature, just like that beloved cranial sacral therapist held the wolf. When we let nature allow the breath of life to again express through our body, then life heals. So just as a moment, I know we're coming to close, but just as a moment, let's take a moment just with our hand on our heart maybe one on the belly just for a moment, and let's feel a sense of self-regulation here. And the co-regulation with feeling the earth body underneath us. And then above us, our Father Sky. And just sense into that, this midline, the central channel of our being, formed from light, fluid dynamics. There was a movement of sacred water filled with light photons through our spine that formed us. So sense that sacredness of the self. And in this now moment, we can feel and see and sense that in this field of our panel and the people who are with us, the safety that is here in numbers on earth. Feel that breath in the body as we can yield into the layers of support of all of us showing up to support safety, to stand and speak to safety. And then just allow a couple hums in the body, literal hums of sound as it resonates through the core. Just allow a hum. Maybe one or two more on your own. Just feel the hum down into the low belly, as low as you can feel the vibration land in you. Just to feel that. Feel the landing. This is self-regulation. Just to recognize that in this now moment, we are safe. We are safe. Trauma can discharge off the body. Little trembles might happen, little shimmers and shakes. Yielding back into the field that is here, the field of the humans that are here, and the field of love that is here. Really land back into your own spine, supporting you. And then back behind that which is much greater supporting us. Feel the endless support of what is backing us. Backing. It's endless. Just taking a couple more breaths here in this rest. And recognizing that resource is available always. It's just we need to turn the channel into the resource station. And then we know we're safe. And then from there we act, we respond and plan it. How do I listen to the animals, the plants, my fellow human beings? How do I show up for love? Knowing first that I am love, first. Dear ones.
No, thank you so much. Thank you, Sarah, for that beautiful presencing of the breath and the peace on Peace Day, and the love that we are feeling here together in this space. Beautiful. Providing the core need of physical and emotional safety for all of life. What a wonderful intention and a beautiful discussion. We have 15, 16, 17 minutes left, a few minutes each, to reflect on anything that you're feeling has been shared by any of the other panelists, or anything you want to. How can we more effectively go forward collectively? The incredible work that's been done by so many. If you have anything you want to share about moving forward collectively, please do so as well. But Patricia Anne Davis, let's come to you. And I got to study a little bit with you about Hojo in the context of David Boehm's work recently. And it blew my mind that how much you had been able to share with me there around. Sorry, I'm just making Pablo the host so he can keep translating. Sorry, Pablo's muted himself. Go ahead, brother. The connection between, you know, understanding a little bit of Hojo and its depth from your wisdom is really expansive. So, you know, anything you've heard here, Patricia Anne Davis, or in the last few minutes, what would you like to share?
Yes, in our eternal self and the eternal now within Hojo, I want to say to oh my goodness, what the tears were flowing when I saw that wolf, because I had to just get off camera because I have 2 rescue dogs at home, and this is something that we really need to reawaken to, this interconnection. I'll just give you some examples like Sethian rock people, non-Sethian holy plant people, Sonthian star people, and so on, like that. It's built in the language. And so also say to Sarah that all healing, yes, thank you for that. The in-breath, out-breath. I tell young people that's how life is simple. Life is simple. It's yes and no, and the consequences thereof. So all healing takes place in a meditative state, chanting, drumming, and certainly breathing, and so on. Yoga, the type that is called inner engineering, which is promoted by prominent, visible Sadhguru on the internet. Now, Laura, the obstacles to wellness. Well, you're talking about trauma bonding, and so the reframe out of inverse thinking that we're born into deficient self-image into affirmative is just dismantling, just deconstructing that it's not true. It's a lie. It doesn't exist. There's no way that we can be earth, water, fire, air, in the earth, water, fire, air, and be born deficient. So let us not be trauma bonding, is that this whole planet is in it, and that it's not good for us. It's very toxic, and it's very destructive, and it is death producing. So thank you for your knowledge and wisdom. You're referring to that. I think it's Gabor Mate, who has done enormous work about how to heal as well. So there's a term called normalized pathology. So we're existing in this normalized pathology. Pathology just means out of balance condition. So let's reawaken and reframe and redesign what we're already existing within us. And so I'm happy and excited to say that. And there's so much more we could speak about. Definitely, my work is about decision making and our thinking, whereas the criminal mind is using our thinking for what it is not for. We have a sacred self intellect within us, a sacred self intellect. So let's use it for what it's for.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. And Patricia, we are launching the 7 core needs here in Peace Week, and this will become an ongoing conversation. So we definitely hope we can continue the conversation going forward, because there's so much more to share. Each one of you has so much more to share. So hopefully this will be something that we can do more than once. Susan, as we are coming towards the close of this magnificent circle and sharing, and very touching to hear the effect that apricot had on Patricia and on so many of us. I have border collies, and actually one of them reminded me very much of apricot as well. But Susan, I'd love to hear from you, your not necessarily closing remarks, but just anything that you wanted to add at this time.
What everyone has talked about as you brilliantly guys put together, is of a piece from the collective ancestral trauma to the current trauma to the ways of healing through ceremony, to the wonderful conversation about regulation and co-regulation. It's all of such a beautiful whole piece. One of the things we're lacking so much, and of course, as you guys are trying to do, is whole thinking, whole systems thinking. How can we facilitate more of that instead of the disconnected, chopped up type of thinking we have? Is of great importance. I would like to reiterate, because it's so important, how responsive life is to us. If you sit with a tree for a while, energy is going to start to flow back and forth. And I shouldn't say tree or even a tree, because all life is equal in a way, but we think of a tree as less than an animal, as less than a human in our way of thinking. It's everywhere. We're bathed in it. As you were saying, Patricia, we're bathed in this beauty and this sense of connection, and we're disconnected and we don't tune to it. I think it was you said, one of you were talking about, in effect, change the channel. We have the channels for it. How do we help ourselves change and support one another to tune to that channel? Sometimes it's really, things are starting to move in a good way. There's a gentleman called Max Neef who talks about fundamental human needs, redoing Albert Maslow's version of it, where he says transcendence isn't the last thing at the top, but self-transcendence and transcendence is a fundamental core need at the bottom of everything, which I firmly believe. And there's a nice organization called the American Sustainable Business Network. And within that, they're trying to actually take these fundamental human needs and needs for transcendence into businesses. So we change the way we do business. I would say that's one rather important thing to do. But again, having small community groups where we support one another and sharing support and thinking about what actions we want to take while we're considering all of life, and having those spread throughout the world is one way of self-organizing, if you will. Anyway, thank you to all of you. It's just wonderful to be here, and I look forward to more possible conversations.
Wonderful, wonderful, Susan. And I just want to encourage everybody to take a good look around Earth Fire Institute, where so much of your work and the work of your team, just extraordinary stuff, really transformative. There's a lot there. So do take your time to familiarize yourself with earthfireinstitute.org and some of the incredible work that's happening in rewilding, Reconnection Ecology. I mean, it's just really, really beautiful stuff. So thank you for sharing with us, Susan. Thank you for being with us. Okay, Laura, thank you so much. Your presentation, I thought, was just wonderful, as everything has been today. What are you left with at this? What's your sense now in terms of what have we spoken about today, and what can we do from here?
Well, as I was saying, I deeply resonate with so much that has been spoken here. And Sarah, I so appreciate your focus on infancy. It's such a crucial time in human life, and so much of our traumas then that we end up dealing with later, get created because we don't have respect and enough of an understanding for, what those young versions of us really need and how they are different from an adult, and how we cannot demand of them things that they cannot, provide for themselves or for us. And the awareness also of the importance, the power of our somatic resources, our connection to our bodies. There's so much wisdom that we as part of nature already carry within our bodies. And so that feels also like such an important contribution. I love, Patricia, life is not all give and not all take. This sense of reciprocity that really needs to inform right relation with nature and with each other, I feel is such an important aspect. That's one thing I wanted to make sure I mentioned, because it felt so important. And Susan, I mean, beside that, I've always loved animals. So what you're doing, like, it just blown away. I just, there's a part of me that my heart just sings when I see, the work you're doing, and how it's so deeply informed by relation to place, and as you're saying, I also heard this from a man whose last name is Junta Portes, and I can't remember, unfortunately, his first name. He's from Australia. You might know him, Ben. But he was inviting us, me living in Mexico City, to stay present to the nature that we do have, those of us who might not live in, in more extensive nature reserves. But to really notice the changes, to have a deepen our relatedness. And to me, that's really one of the crucial aspects. Life is everywhere. The sacred is everywhere. And if we look for it, we will find it. Trauma can get in the way. But when we understand that trauma initially was there to try to protect us, and we align with, we can also relate even to trauma in right relation that can help it heal. So learning how to have right relation to life, to the sacredness, and to its intelligence, I think, is at the core of what this particular core need is demanding of us. And one final thing, I have the sense that humanity really is like a brain that is coming together. We're all neurons, but there's a difference between a bunch of neurons and a brain. And that is the connectedness that we bring that then allows a higher order intelligence to emerge. I think we're going to need that higher order intelligence to really deal with the challenges that we're facing. So let's allow ourselves to connect with each other, because that's where we'll find the most amazing capacities that will really bring forth the world we're hoping to be living in. Thank you so much.
Beautiful, Laura. Thank you. And Sarah, just the perhaps wrapping up and bringing together so much as what has been shared here. Just to come back to you, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Laura. What you're sharing touches me. One of my teachers, Ray, he would say that the trauma, what happened to us, can't change. It's what happened to us. But our relationship to that which happened can change. And that's the repatterning, right? That is the repatterning to increase the processing system of our body to not just repattern and clear the trauma, but ultimately open further to life. What we know we're healing when more life is coming, right? So it's about claiming life. Every baby, when there isn't intervention, because intervention actually stops a baby's impulse to say yes to life. When a baby is born naturally through the forces of Mother Nature, there is a spiral, and that spiral, they push off the uterine wall with their feet and their core, and they say yes. That's a life of non-trauma. We say yes to life. I'm here. How do I serve? How do I be? And just in deep honor again to Patricia and the communion of our body to earth, and how we are not separate from, and we are not separate from. And Susan, just the co-regulation of how we are very primal. When you are with a birthing mother, wow, it is primal. And when we try to stop that primal innate impulse, we stop life. So it's just this return to nature, to sensation, again, tracking. We are so addicted to what is not working. And that's also a bit of a thing with trauma, is we can become a bit obsessed, because trauma, oh my gosh, it's in there through all of our lineage, all the way back. But what if we also, alongside healing our trauma, we increase our connection to a divine experience of ourselves and the gifts of the ancestors? Can we do both so that one doesn't take over, but they're balanced in a communion of both? Yes, this trauma happened to me, and damn it, I am an amazing human being because of that trauma. How do I hold that? How do we do this together, right? So Yeah, and then I'll just say, with Laura, there's so many resources. Thomas Hubel has a huge resource of amazing practitioners. Ray Castellino, castellinotraining.com. You can find the womb surrounds listed by myself and many, many others who do this work. Ceremonies that Patricia has connection to, getting out into nature. Linda Tucker with the White Lions, our beloved Susan with the Wolves. Reconnect to that communion of nature, so key. And, with Emily Conrad, the Continuum movement, these are our ancestors now. They've come, they've given their message, and we're here to continue that work on. So find which resources you, because there are so many tools, so many tools. Yeah.
Beautiful. And a shout out for the Collective Trauma Summit coming up September 28 to 6, and the link is there in the chat. Thank you, Sarah. That was a beautiful summing up and connecting. This panel has been incredible. It's part of the launch of the 7 core needs. And so just to briefly presence them as we come to the close of the circle today. The 7 core needs, starting with number 1 of living soil, healthy water, vitalizing food, fresh, clean air, physical and emotional safety, which we've been discussing today, uncomfortable shelter we'll be discussing tomorrow. And then on Friday, we are talking about the conditions to manifest potential, life-giving potential. So there's a beautiful a moment where these 7 core needs are being launched. So thank you so much to all the panelists for being here to help have such a rich conversation. We are in Peace Week. We're on Peace Day. And, this community has been on a 99-day journey, or not 95 days in to a 99-day journey of peace through unity. And these core needs are really helping us to ground that yearning for unity and yearning for peace. And that as we work towards striving to ensure that the core needs of all of animals and humans are met, the core needs are met, this is a pathway to peace and peace through unity. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Patricia Anne Davis, for being with us, Susan Eirich, Laura Caldéron de la Barca, and Sarah Grace. Thank you. Thank you so much. We are really, really honored and delighted. This, I think, will be archived, and we'll share the link around. And we do hope that you'll join us again to continue this very, very rich conversation.